There we go. Hey everybody, how's it going? Forgot about that. Um, yeah, there we go. Alright, looks like everything's working. So yeah, we are going to go over a assessment that I've been working on. This is not my big project, but I'm going over this before I go over the 15 pages that I've already written to try to help me finish brainstorming the finality of this piece. So, majority of what I'm doing right now for this semester is something called emergency management, specifically the second tier of my training for it, which is focused on domestic issues and how to mitigate emergency situations between local government, state government, and federal government. So, with this assignment, we were focusing on making an assessment for a example to town, a town called Anytown, USA. Using the example for that, we already had done an assessment on natural disasters, basically by looking at various places and locations for basically where the city had set up its infrastructure, and by analyzing the infrastructure of hold on real quick, sorry everybody. I'm trying to actually see if I can pull it up for you all, but also I'm searching for like 1,000 different articles. Hopefully I didn't just throw you guys off. But ideally, if this worked out, then I can just go ahead and pull this up and we can go and look over it. It'd actually be kind of cool to start figuring out how to do more of this kind of stuff. There we go. Cool. Coolio. Just drag and drop that. Tweet. Anytown, USA. Alright, so yeah. Anytown, USA. And basically we have this sheet up here where we can go and we can basically look over the entirety of the town and basically surveil different portions of it to see basically like, hey, okay, this is how the town is shaped. This is its main infrastructure. These are important locations for it to, you know, for us to take in consideration where a possible attack could possibly cripple the infrastructure and lead to injuries for people. So, you have like damages from earthquakes, things like that. It shows you a little diagram. So it's a pretty cool little introduction to kind of what we're going to be working with once we're into the professional labor market, basically. Sorry, I'm working at the end of my logic, and I literally just wrote like for 6 hours straight. Anyways, flashbacks of the war. So a summary. I don't know what that was. Anyways, a summary. So the Cold War was the catalyst for advancing our computational and operational abilities as a militarized powerhouse in the West. Plenty of humbling examples of invasion, illegal modification, and corruption of electronic systems have resulted in complete and multifaceted security measures. Incidents like the Y2K panic marked the end of an era of reactionary innovations and proactive engagements with diversifying anti-hacking measures and the tracking of threats. Emergency management and homeland security has been shaped by the need to be proactively involved in the cutting edge of cybersecurity. Private investors and companies benefit from the government's development of interdependent and collaborative systems, and they provided incentives for the federal government to invest in more advanced technological systems. This feedback system defines the relationship between cybersecurity and emergency management. Which leads to our next section, tail wagging the dog, which is something that I've noticed a lot with emergency management. It's just, as an outside observer of a lot of government documents, I'm starting to become much more refined between when I was just looking at these things as an outsider versus actually trying to do this as my career as a statesman. So, what I've noticed with federal government interference with local government and even local government bidding for the attention and enfranchisement of federal government powers. There's always this idea of where is the body of the politic, in the sense that what is driving these policies? What is leading to the policy formation and the legislation that we're actually trying to push through? So, with cybersecurity, a lot of what's defined it over the last decades has been this need to be proactive. Well, first it was reactionary, then it was mutualistic. Now it's going into the proactive phase where the government's trying to constantly move one step ahead of insurgency groups and belligerent um, cyber security threats, trying to keep this as PG as possible without basically warning everybody that the government's going to start cracking down our necks and breathing down our skins. That's why I'm entering the government, to try to get by us a little bit of time. Hopefully people don't sabotage us on the way there. Sorry, just cringing inside because I already know people are planning on voting for the wrong people next election, thinking they're doing a good thing. So, anyways, the tail wagging the dog. Talking about tail wagging a dog is American elections in a nutshell. The current cybersecurity measures could be likened to a dog. Would our security measures be the tail or the body? Responsive measures were developed to reinforce developing systems and newfound vulnerabilities, leading to proactive offensive and defensive capabilities becoming available. Typo. As the utility of cyber infrastructure increases, this basic immune system of counteractive programs and insurances becomes the foundation of more preventative measures and preemptive responses. The current evolution of our cybersecurity agenda seems to be cutting or edging towards proactive engagement of cyber hazards. Other national powers and terrorist groups benefit both from government transparency and the proliferation of cyber technology, which means that despite our best efforts, there is never a genuine means of ensuring total security. This is the incentive for the government to continually advance our post-Patriot Act cybersecurity measures. So the idea of cracking down on every single possible dissident group and every single politically active advocacy group, that's really the future of our country, is this 1984-esque kind of overwatch that's being set up to prevent prevent the prevention of radicalization, which is kind of the focus of the government right now. If you look at what we're really focusing on shaping our policies on. So, what are the solutions for this growing hazard of never being able to get ahead of our enemies? Well, there are possible solutions to cybersecurity issues. These start from preventative measures like antivirus programs, security checks with personal identification and verification. But from here, we start dealing with the mitigation strategies. Server wipes and using the process of systematic blackouts to cancel out enemy intrusions and provide denial of entry or access. Um, you can create the denial of service should an intrusion occur to a vital government database. Meanwhile, there are security insurances and protections that have been developed to reduce the financial risk associated with doing online trading. So the stock market is protected by the ability to basically dump stocks that get intruded or kind of tinkered with too much. This is kind of the whole issue that happened with the whole Bitcoin something. Everybody started buying off GameStop with separate coins. That whole bid with the fiat currency arms race that's going on. And that's really the background of what cybersecurity and cyber infrastructure is being based off of. And the body commodifies this liquidable but non-tangent currency to influence really everything that we do in our society. We no longer are really working with actual currency anymore. We do on the local level, but once you get to the government, they work with debt. And we sell using debt. We deal with other countries trading debt, which is not how you run an economy, a government, or a system. But that's a side issue not related to cybersecurity. This is why I really wanted to have a chance to just kind of get some of these ideas out of my head so I can focus when I get back to my paperwork, because I have all these side things going on. So, anyways, where do we leave off? By providing private networking contracts and auxiliary internet service providers hosted within the United States, we strengthen and secure our government information and civilian private data through interoperability, which is a huge concept that we've been drilling into our heads in emergency management. This idea that every system, every agency needs to be able to have a shared language, a shared way of being able to interact with each other and be able to communicate and efficiently work together to deal with hazards, emergencies, threats. Um, this capability to provide useful and cost-effective interchange of electronic data is vital for ensuring both rapid response and domestic threat assessment, as the ability to model and simulate threats provides a service the United States can commercialize among our allies, like with what we do with Israel, with the Five Eyes network, with MI6 and other agencies in the European Union. In fact, that was a huge aspect of this whole Russian collusion thing was our constant reliance upon this cooperation with foreign intelligence agencies who do have an incentive to control which politician and which person in legislation gets into play. So this is kind of where the whole situation that where my current situation kind of comes in. Like for a large part of what my project is right now, I'm basically trying to lay out the framework of a large discussion for how we can de-escalate the partisanship and the radicalization of our different political parties against each other, while also being able to begin to really start focusing our eyes on the real issue of the government and media cooperation and manipulation of public perceptions to create conflicts that then enfranchise the government to then act against both groups. But in order to do that, I also have to make the argument that that is what the government should be doing, and it's the obvious direction from which we're going. So I'm just arguing for the evidence that I have ahead of me. But again, it's a lot of stuff that I've been just reading and drowning in my head. And to be honest, I haven't been wanting to read much because my brain hurts. Anyways, let's get back to this. This is because of how governments can use these services to protect the exchange of developing geopolitical information, which promotes effective cooperation between international partnerships in both trade and military defense. This is what I was talking about with the relationship between Five Eyes and the US. And really, this idea of selling information in both the private information of civilians, but also government technology between other countries is very, very I understand the concepts behind it, the general diplomacy that drives it, but perhaps maybe this is the nationalistic aspect of me driving through that I can't really express in my classes, just for the sake of being objective. But I do feel that it is a huge national security risk. And it is something that we need to very quickly clamp down on and begin to invest in innovation that's driven by American designs and American concerns. And again, this I think this would help with also a large part of our labor issue if we really stopped relying on our foreign lenses and this idea of wielding debt as a liquidable commodity. Ludicrous concept considering that the government will kick down our door the second we don't pay a freaking toll. But Lord forbid, the government literally sells debt. Like literally. I don't even understand why we're having conversations about debt forgiveness about anything when a government literally sells debt to other countries in order to drive military policy and oil sales. So now, that whole concept of the government being over down our neck, that's something that we probably should address with legislation and representation on another day, not necessarily probably through the political party system until we solve that issue first. We need to get to the point where we're not relying on third party option or the two party option. Instead, people have free flow of information and discussion between all potential partisan groups, whether it's right, left, center, above, or middle, doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter if it's coming from below. Doesn't matter if we get really what matters most is that we can get the atheists, we can get the Christians, we can get the Muslims, we can get the Buddhists, we can get the freaking socialists, the conservative, hyper, ultra capitalists, all to the same table. Get them bickering, get them discussing, and then let the crowd laugh at the people they want to laugh at, hum at the people they want to hum at, and go, you might be right for the people they might think are right. And then from there, we allow the representation process to elect officials who can then represent these interests. And then on the legislative process through Congress, like how the Constitution is set up, we then deal with this. This constant fear of the uprising is really only going to bear fruit if both sides play the part. And the government's doing nothing to really stop that. So to be honest, people, the best people to look out for ourselves are us, we the people, and you have the right people who want to go into offices in order to be able to interfere with kind of how the process is being managed right now. But the only way we'll be able to get anywhere is for you guys helping us. So this interplay, the discussions we have, the debates, all that stuff, it's a building process. At least for me, I am utilizing all of this to build something better. I do want to build a world everyone can live in. Not that much of a theocrat that I don't believe that everybody has the desire to honor whatever they believe is most true. And for me, if you believe God is the most true thing, you should be free to represent Him. If you don't, then whatever. Do your thing. Just don't stop other people from being them. Don't teach other people's children to go against their parents when they had no other reason to. There are a lot of things that we argue about in our culture and society because people want to, not because we have to. And for me, that's ludicrous. I wanted to destroy these false idols and false hills that we are all dying on for no reason. And a large part of that comes through the analysis and submitting myself to the system to understand how it works, which is where stuff like this comes into play. So in the greater environment of public safety, this capacity to provide useful and cost-effective interchange of electronic data is vital for ensuring both rapid response and domestic threat assessment. Data collection and data security have become the focal points of cyber warfare, leading to the creation of auxiliary cyber bunkers, which would be able to house backups of vital systems and other data needed for critical infrastructure. Now, this is a concept that I've been brainstorming as part of my DEF CON Red plan. And so, basically, even though I'm not in office, even though really I left the military with nothing more than just my desire to fulfill my oath in a much more personal way, I've always been dwelling upon the idea of what happens if things fail, what happens if the infrastructure collapses. Now, a large part of this came about 10 years ago in 2010 when I started to really drill into the idea of, okay, what happens if we have the socialist revolution? How would that go? And the results the results both depressed me because once I tried to actually address the issues that I saw that would lead to the socialist revolution failing, I realized they don't want to address those issues because they don't care. That's actually what broke me and made me leave the left. That, coupled with all the other nuances and abuses that I began to realize were really starting to amount, and honestly seeing the trajectory of where the party interests were flying and the federalism that was really underlaying a lot of these legislative plays they were making, I became appalled because they were becoming everything they promised us they wouldn't be. That doesn't make me necessarily woke. I would just, or anti-woke, or woke, or whatever. I don't understand what terminology is which, but that's kind of the point. I don't care. I'm an American. I can't run to another country right now. And even if I did, I don't really want to because I was born here. I was born here in a state that honestly hates people like me, especially the minority. And yet at the same time, it's like, I care more about the truth and telling people the truth and helping people with the truth. So this is how we go about doing that, is by committing to actually providing information, what we actually are learning, or in actually what we should learn. Oh, you guys can tell that my brain is fried. What time is it? It's only 7 p.m., but then again, I go to sleep around 8 lately because I've been waking up at like 5 a.m. to go and rock out things. Plus, I technically still don't really sleep much longer than 2 or 3 hours, so it's kind of like I wake up, I stumble into a quasi state where I'm like half thinking, half sleeping, and then something trumps me awake where I'm just like, yeah, okay, I guess I'm kind of done with this, let's go on. And then I get up and work. Anyways, so this idea that data collection into a data bunker, I think that's a neato idea. It's kind of this idea of having an infrastructure backup plan It's kind of underlaying a lot of what I'm going to propose for legislative policies when I'm in office or able to start influencing legislation. There are aspects by which I want to enfranchise different demographics that have long since been given only partial influence within the United States government. Um, I have a desire to enfranchise other groups with different sorts of diplomatic releases from liabilities to the American population, while also enfranchising them with the same kind of trade benefits that they could have while giving them independence of formal government representation among themselves. I mean, again, I think that the idea is to be mutualistic in as many interactions that we have, open palm interactions. But you always, my general policy in life is that I'm open handed. I'm not going to sit there and hide things from you, but I'm not also hiding the fact that I'm not saying I carry around a big stick, it's just I will do what it takes to survive. As a country, that is a efficient and honest way to deal with most of your foreign interests. And this idea of the false sanctification of America has really only served to lead us in bullying the rest of the world for the sake of other countries' interests. This is a large part of the anti-internationalist movement. And really that comes about from this idea that we've recognized America is not really serving its own interests. Selfish as that may seem to some people, even the government acknowledges that, and even if you think that all these internationalist plays are done for the benefit of everybody, it's really for the benefit of the American government. I mean, for us, we are the blood for the American government, but they're going to still do their drugs. Addicts are addicts. You got to get them rehabilitation, and that's why you introduce the American people into the play. We are the only checks and balances we can rely on because everybody who we elect comes from us, and unless we replace them with people from the ground up, we're only ever going to select people who have been trained their entire lives to be that way. Keep electing lawyers to presidency, you're going to have president lawyers. And again, like I read in that book the other day, oh, wait, that didn't actually get published, but there's a book that I'm reading where they actually make a huge point that you don't elect presidents based off of public appeal or this idea of how friendly they are with legislation that people like. You instead elect shrewd businessmen. You want to elect people who are able to have held up in a property or a brand for a decent amount of time against foreign interest, against competition, and to liquidate different sources of income to then produce more product, GDP. So the idea is that you don't want to elect people who have made their entire living off of parasiting off of other people, which is why our government is the way it is. Just saying, guys, we kind of done this to ourselves. But we might be right about that kind of aspect of humanity where we kind of just do ourselves in our own universe. Anyways, data bunkers comes from the idea, though, that our infrastructure should have a shadow element to it. We are overt with everything that we do, but we also make sure we protect our people. Just because I go and I'm friendly with people does not mean that if I know I'm talking to somebody who's liable to shoot me, I'm not going to want to have a bulletproof vest. So for our information systems, we need to secure them in modular, temporary shelters that can then be swapped between different locations. The idea would be that you rotate them throughout the year to different upgrade periods. So you store and upgrade all of the information on our internet systems, and then you put them in there. Another aspect of this plan would be that we would start decentralizing the World Wide Web. So, kind of taking a vein from China, which in some ways kind of comes into the play of I'm kind of having to serve the interest of my enemies in order to try to be one step ahead of them. It's going to happen eventually where the World Wide Web will become the American web or the North American internet network or whatever you want to call it. To beat them to the punch would be to basically localize internet providers, localize internet systems, and start removing it, kind of like what I want to do with PG&E, start removing and decentralizing this wide reach and influence a lot of these companies have and a lot of these systems have over the American people. Start localizing us so that we start focusing on what's immediately in front of us and what we can do to work on that. That would not mean that in my system, I would not separate people from the World Wide Web. Again, we have VPNs, things like that. I personally believe that in order to protect people through things like VPNs, which can only work insofar as the government doesn't actually want to really do anything with your information, I would say that it would be best to provide an American infrastructure that can then be personalized, even to the point where families can have their own unique internet provider and then use it. Problem with that is that, of course, people are corrupt, evil pieces of crap, and so that creates a whole other problem with abuses and domestic disputes. But let's be utopian and look at this from a federal view. Ideally, with the idea of localizing this bunkerizing of different infrastructure systems, you would be preparing the American people for any type of catastrophic failure of the federal government. If we're not able to exert any sort of influence on the federal government to the local level, then the people can sustain themselves without just straight up dying in droves. Other countries have already invested in this, even if they weren't really investing in it genuinely. But still, why can't we? And so the idea is that you want, and even when we come up with AIs, I think the only way that I would actually endorse legislating the production of AIs would be if it's on a local level. Companies can produce the modular systems that then independent families who are computer savvy can then assemble into family AIs. And then the family AI is a preset operating standard system that they can learn from there, and it'll be kind of like, a free developing being, but it's localized. Rather than hooking it up to the grand internet and then creating these quantum computing frames that then can drive fiscal policies and drive at our, wartime strategizing and all that stuff. It's not something we need to start working towards as a society. Now, sadly, our enemies will gladly endorse that technology that means they can go and stab us in the back. So, what do? Well, you work on that stuff anyways, and you work on the means to destroy it using that stuff. But you have to do, the problem with AIs is the idea of having to have them. You can't create a code to teach morality to an AI. You have to prove morality to the AI, which means it can backfire on all of us. So the problem with quantum computing is that it can quantum compute how much of a problem you're going to be in its butt in the next 5 years or a decade or 100 years, and you're never going to know it when it stabs you in the back. And once we give these things the ability to create or clone or to manipulate the human genome and produce other humans, oh man, it's all bad. That's a huge cybersecurity risk in and of itself that I could write about. Anyways, for instance, in the event of the loss of a vital system, for instance, in the event of the loss of vital systems, violent systems. Sorry, I'm at the end of my ropes. For instance, in the event of the loss of vital systems, there needs to be a backup to prevent any sort of compelled submission to cyber terrorist activities. The ethical issue of this cooperation with threats can lead to the sabotaging of key public and private infrastructure or the compromising of the effectiveness of federal systems. Cyber terrorist objectives can range from requesting the provision of assets, data assets, and the influence of power. Man, I should wear my glasses. To the promoting of increased destruction and suffering by targeting civilian populations during natural disasters. Thank God I have this up so you guys can read as well. So the idea of this is that the targets that future cybersecurity risks are going to start hitting us with, it's not going to be this guy. Oh, I really hope I didn't just mess up my paper doing that. Anyway, with a furious typing away, and then all of a sudden, and red screens start flashing. It's like, oh my god, and planes start falling. I mean, once we start working with AI, oh yeah, that's a thing. But that's just the problem with centralization and over reliance on infrastructure. Really, an over reliance on interoperability between vital infrastructure systems. That's why modularizing different systems actually allows you to preserve the integrity of a larger body. That's why we have different organs within a body to, anyways, nerding out later aside, all that stuff. The whole point is that cybersecurity risks are going to be localized around either stealing private data or corporate data, or it's going to be around hitting people while they're down. So let's say there's a huge hurricane that's about to strike um, Texas or something. Well, a cyber terrorist threat could hack the technology that allows us to have early warning to when this thing's going to strike or how big it's going to hit us with, and then they modify it so that we go, oh, it's nothing. Next thing you know, we get hit with a Category 10 storm and everybody's fracked. That's the kind of stuff that we should be looking out for in the future. And that's the kind of threat that we're going to be getting into as we work into a global, galactic kind of scale of operations for what our intentions as a country. I mean, again, I think the best way for humanity to make it into space and not kill ourselves off in the process would be for everybody to fend for themselves by personally America just not being hostile about it, but just being like, we're cool. We're not going here to scheme and like destroy you all. It's just we need to fix our crap. And when we figure it out, we'll share the process with you all. Peace. Going in on our own infrastructure, restructure our society, fix our partisanship issue, fix our economic issues, get everything in-house figured out, and then you guys can have your space travel when you want. Deal? Deal? You get the conservatives what they want, liberals, you can get space. Heck, if you guys decide you don't want to go into space, I'm almost certain there's a trek of Christians who would love to piss you all off by being the first people on Mars. Just saying. I'm almost certain that if I do end up really just not caring anymore, I might sign up to go to Mars too, just to freaking annoy you guys by naming everything after the Bible. You guys are gonna be real mad too, because I'll have the degree to prove that I can go up into space. You guys need a government. You guys need some sort of legal and legislative authority. Oh man, that would piss so many people off too. Like this guy got into space. Well, I served in the military specifically for this one reason. If I could join the Space Force, maybe that might be my path up into Mars, and then we'll have, Mount Sinai, which would be like the beginning of a whole continent. Oh, think about conquering Mars. Who wants to go conquer Mars with me? Anybody? Just leave a like and subscribe and a comment on what we're gonna name the different cities on Mars. The first step may be the moon. They might just want to chuck us on the moon and leave us there to do mining work. Be honest, that would suck. That's why I'd say let's not be the first couple people that are promised to take it off world. Just saying, probably just mine work or some sort of menial labor, which would lead to the typical conditions faced by our species when we go and start a new settlement. Lots of deaths, lots of suffering, lots of people eating each other. We can wait for a couple moves before we run out to places. But anybody who's really balling, maybe we could try it. Be honest. All things considered, I run for office. I got nothing better to do. Might as well go for space. That's the only other thing I've had on my bucket list. Maybe I need to go and start talking to Elon Musk. Somebody was saying that I was sipping for him earlier. If he becomes Christian, and I have no other reason not to hate the guys. Because so far I have no reason to hate him in the first place. I don't care. He can have his money. Just don't get in my way of me and my money and life and my family and my security. And once you start making legislative policies, Elon, then we'll start arguing. I'll start nitpicking the hell out of you. But you don't seem to care much about influencing policy other than being like, hey, don't mess with me and my company, please. I'll sell stuff cheaper in America. And then people go, okay. Or, hey, can I get some subsidies so I can give you guys that electronic car stuff that you all were complaining about? Oh, okay, that's good. So all of you guys don't want to simp over him. For me, it's only if he actually comes over to the side that I think is helping us win the battle. So once he becomes Christian, oh, cool. I'll talk about him far more often. In this one case, though, I am going to simp a little bit. Elon, if you're listening, you got people who might be willing to go to Mars for you. You just got to be willing to deal with my naming schemes. But I can run people. I'm learning now, and I definitely am starting to get to the point where I can't. I'm not really. It's sobering to be in my 30s, having read all of these different books from our founders that sound so hopeful and, you know, and then you just get into the period of the Articles of Confederation right now because of what I'm studying with the whole like insurgency of the right issue going on with the Capitol riots. It's just hilarious because it's literally just this huge period where literally our presidents, the people who founded this country are just like, these people are idiots. They can't run themselves, and they just like destroying things when they're mad. What is wrong with these people? Can't they realize that we don't have to destroy something just because we're upset? And it's like, holy crap, nothing ever changes. The Bible is certainly true about that too. Proverbs, it says, nothing's new underneath the sun. Seriously, the sun's seen it all. Literally, this both the sun that floats in the sky and Christ, they both have seen it all because it's like, dude, we are repetitive, and almost dull about it creatures. And we think we're better because we can make better technology to do the same things dumber. Oh my gosh. I'm happy that I came to faith late in life because I have no reason to hate Christianity. It's more like Christianity is just a relief. After I've been having this mental breakdown because there's nothing I can find to solve these problems using science or using the tools of psychology and sociology to change the world. And then there's just this book that I read, and it's just like, people are always going to be stubborn as an ox. The only way to help them is to make them realize, oh, I'm hungry, let me eat. Some people, that's just the only way to deal with them. I'm sorry, everybody. I wish it could change. But the only other people who you guys are going to rely upon also believe the same thing. And the only difference between me and them is that I have the hope that if you guys believe and see differently or see the examples of people who are changed in their life by these things that they're believing in and being changed and molded to try to do in this world and help change things, that maybe perhaps I'll inspire you all to change your own life in a little way. So, this whole idea of the human virus, this whole meme syndrome thing where you infect somebody with a meme. But this meme is us, the person, the work of Christ, the Christian meme inside of me, leading me to do this work as a sacrifice of my life for you all to be changed by. Whether it's through the things that I do or the things that I'm able to say to you all. But it's the same thing. For what you guys learn, you guys can then share. So it's this process by which we then start fixing things on the ground level, working our way up. We don't have to go to Mars to do so. But if we do, people are going to be missing us when we leave. Just saying. Anyways, long conversation out of the way. Anyways. Oh. The issue has evolved over the years. Nowadays, the public is often concerned about the protection of their private information from both the government and commercial benefactors. The problem arises when limitations and oversights on the part of these external entities expose their records to a hostile party. Throughout the last decade, we have seen this with the increase in intellectual fraud and corporate espionage committed by affiliates of the Chinese government. Oh, hey, I did make a typo. Ah, I'm a hacker. Okay, I'm done. Don't be mad at me. I hacked myself into messing up my paper and annoying the spell check. I'm done. Anyways, back to Anytown, USA. So, like I was saying about Anytown, a huge aspect of that is that there's floods, there's tornadoes, there's all that weird crap. And actually, at this point, we're pretty much at the end of the article, so I'm just gonna let you guys have this fancy little map thing to go in. Feast and yonder your eyes upon. Meow. Meow. There you go. Alright, so yeah. Back to Anytown, USA. Big problem with this town is earthquakes, tornadoes, and tomatoes. They have a huge tomato problem, everybody. Earthquakes, tornadoes, and flooding. Those are the huge issues with this town. For some reason, the way they arranged everything, in fact, give me a second. I can just, no, not you. You. Yes. Anyways, super small brain. Focus. Oh. Back to Anytown, USA. So a main issue with this town is just the layout is just it's something else. This layout is just something else, dude. Like I'm sorry guys. So a big thing about this town is earthquakes. You have what you call it? Hold on, let me get to the suburbs so I can. Oh, there we go. Ha. So yeah, big thing is earthquakes hitting these areas, core areas over here. This area so much doesn't really suffer that much other than wildfires for some stupid reason. But the earthquakes have hit this area and it really affects the railway, affects the highways over here. It's really stupid. They also have a power grid, which implies that technically the majority of their power is ran underground from the power plants over here. Now that's housing. Sorry for that. Wrong development. Yeah, I think it's here that's power plant, right? Yeah, power station. So yeah, the implication is either the power station is brand new, either for the dam system, either here, or there's an implication that well, obviously they're getting dam power or something like that generated somewhere. They also have a nuclear power plant here, so there's many different ways they could be channeling the power from there, then all the way through here. But a big network or vein is these freaking wind power things. And honestly, that's a horrible idea. Well, obviously the town's not ran just by it because just the layout doesn't make any sense. But yeah, earthquakes, tornadoes, flooding. Obviously, flooding's a huge thing for this area. But they were smart enough to kind of separate it and kind of move around. In a lot of ways, this reminds me of kind of how Sacramento's built, where we kind of have a lot of marshlands between these areas where we actually do have development in infrastructure. But a general idea is that earthquakes and flooding, that's a huge issue for these people. But once you take into the element of just how much cybersecurity can affect, or bad cybersecurity methods can affect the emergency management systems of a place like this, it's ridiculous. Like, let's say you need to send people from the fire station in this area all the way out to here. Well, shoot, you hit up this area or you cause a traffic jam or you attack somebody with a denial of service attack, you could fundamentally disrupt emergency services for an hour, a couple hours, more than enough time to lead to the deaths of the majority of people in a very important situation, like let's say a fire or earthquake collapse, things like that. So this issue is something that we should take into huge consideration. It's something I did in my analysis report. So when applying cybersecurity considerations above in the previous section, we find that much of the city's infrastructure would be targeted for any number of specific cyber attacks. While while the targeting of any specific location may not be a major concern for a potential hacker or terrorist group, it may be far more likely that such groups would fixate on either public gatherings to collect private data or environmental emergencies by interfering with emergency services and law enforcement. Lastly, I recommend that promoting the continual planning and recovery for a possible cybersecurity attack on the stadium specifically within any town. This is because it's the biggest draw of population. It attracts the most people. It is the biggest source of cyber infrastructure in terms of PPI, but it also exposes people to the most amounts of damage should everybody be trapped in that area. Because the trickle effect of trying to evac everybody, get everybody out of there, this was actually something I had to write a report about, basically would lead to a cluster jam because this area is not designed really for the evac people, assuming this is a mountain range around this area and this is sunk into like a valley or something. Either way, depending on the layout of how this actually would work out in the real world, a lot of things would change. So my suggestion would be the stadium security measures will need to be provided by general stakeholders involved in whichever event that is to occur. This includes all vendors, patrons, staff, and performances which are responsible for keeping up with the basic security measures whenever PPI can be gathered. By including vendor and patron safety alongside alternative forms of electronic crowd control, you can mitigate the hazards of large-scale public gatherings In an age of open access Wi-Fi, investments in closed and protected company and sponsor systems can help with allowing the stadium to control who is using the online services and track for any potential abusers. This is something they actually do. A lot of companies will just bring their own Wi-Fi and establish them in the stadium. When I was working at the Super Bowl, that was actually something that was a huge benefit for us because we were just kind of left out to our own devices and surrounded by thousands of people. And honestly, for the company I worked with, no problem against them. I love the security detail work that I did with them. Got to hang out with some, freaking, what do you call them? Superfly guy, Jaguar guys. What do you call them? Army guys. Army guys with their Humvees. Got to hang out with all those guys and shoot the shit. Oh, crap, I was doing so well in that cutscene. Darn it. At least I didn't mark it for kids, so at least we're still within the limits. I was doing so good, too. I'm at that point where I know that I'm tired, though, because I'm obviously losing my ability to self-censor. Anyways, so it was really cool because when I went to that event, a large part of our issue was making sure that people were secure cybernetically. And so we would go and we'd double check, make sure our Wi-Fi systems were intact, make sure nobody was doing any hacking. It's kind of cool. Anyways, anything from phishing vendor information to public and private systems. Oh, wow, my brain is disturbed. Anything from the phishing of vendor information or the private and public systems to the hacking of broadcasting can be accomplished without overtly interacting or even attending the event. This is why it's so important to establish preventative measures. Because while card reader scams and the stealing of personal information can be accomplished by interacting with local phones and streaming data, this threat of an external attack on a localized system or on a static in a cybernetic infrastructure means that we have to be proactive in making sure we can perceive when somebody is basically predatorily observing these locations to attack them. Either way, that is what I've been working on a couple weeks ago, and kind of a hint of kind of where my head is at. For references, there's my references. You guys can enjoy it as you wish. Have fun. I'm tired. Good night. Have fun, everybody. As for the Shepherds, I most likely will have a post for you guys eventually, but I also most likely won't. There's things I'm working on, and I kind of want to show off a little project I'm working on. But to show it off would also be to give it away, which means if I want to show it off, I at least want it to be out of the freaking phase where I've worked on it for only a couple, really the equivalent of only a day. All the information stuff I'm uploading, it's old, and I've been working on it for a good year now, but when it comes down to it, I like being a perfectionist. I'm okay with that. That's me. I like me. Occasionally, there are things about me I need to work on still. Procrastination's one of them. What else? Well, most of that stuff I've given up to the Lord, so it's really working out far better than I've been relying upon that idea of knowing I don't have to always overcome everything instantaneously on my own willpower alone. And I think that was a huge aspect of why I think I got into arguments with some people on Thread, was it? Somebody, I don't know. Somebody came in swinging and was like, "Oh, if you have any sort of sin or any sort of temptation, you're not saved." And it's like, wait, what? That doesn't make any biblical sense because the Bible says the opposite. Even the apostles said the opposite. And the apostles never got their crap together until really, once they got their crap together, they died. And probably if they didn't die, they wouldn't have gotten their crap together, to be honest. I'm kind of realizing that. If the Lord killed me at the peak of me getting my crap together on the days where I'm at my best, I'd go to heaven in a heartbeat. And you know what? People would probably sanctify me. But you give me an extra day, and yeah, I'm sitting there eating hoagies like nobody's business, crashing up a storm, and damn it, a drink. So yeah, no, I would say that it really depends on how much you want to be in the Spirit, how much you're walking in fellowshipping with the Spirit of God. For all my secular friends and people who kind of are like, wait, whoa, how did we get into this? I'm tired, so don't be surprised. But now you're here. Hell, happy Hanukkah. Wait, Hanukkah was a month ago. Happy New Year. That's coming up tomorrow. Happy New Year, pre-Eve, year Eve. I don't even celebrate the New Year technically, because the New Year for me happens in the middle of the year for you all. And, uh, happy time that changes between darkness to light. Be changed towards the light's influence, and don't dwell in the shadows. I I was imagining that there would be a way to just kind of go, but I forgot. I'm not editing this, so just imagine. So, um, oh God, my face! Oh, they say you should not put those little personal heater pads on a place for a prolonged period, and now I understand why, because I promptly laid down on it with a bare face, and I have facial hair, but it's not that efficient in that straight heat burn. That was not fun. It was the most comfortable 5 seconds of pain that I've had in a while, but still, like, jeez, I thought my problem was scalding my face, or scalding my throat, drinking all that hot tea and cocoa, but no, 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 I'm giving myself a little bit of trauma every step of the way. Uh, uh, okay, so Mars. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I was going to end the video with Mars. I'm just going to say. Okay, so crap hits the fan. They're like, we're done with you people. You either go to Mars or we kill you all on the stake. Thousands of Christians go and burn on the stake, while the rest of us go off to Mars. What would we do? We obviously need people who can, like, work construction. We need people, because again, everybody thinks it's all about the scientists and stuff. Like, yeah, we need scientists, but we also need construction workers, we need security, we need general labor, we need people to work in freaking concession stands, concession shops, commercial work. We're gonna need people doing shipping. We'll need pilots because that's the most efficient way of just traveling and sending materials. We have to get people who can work in fabrication shops that will have to be set up there, so the construction workers have to set up factories. Um, we need people who can work in power plants because we're going to have to set up power generators, or we're going to have to set up some form of radioactive reactors when we get there. Molten salt reactors might be the most efficient way. Just pre-package that crap and then just install it once we get there. They're self-basically neutralizing, so we'll be less of an issue if we don't know what we're doing. We really like to avoid that, but still. Who knows what diseases are on Mars once you start cultivating the soil. Again, you start working with soil, you start bringing back some gnarly crap. Anyways, so what else would be important? Food. We're gonna have to make a decision on if we're actually gonna want to sterilize the soil that we use on Mars, or if we're actually just gonna kind of wing it and just build up a new immunity. To be honest, if we do it the way that people tend to expect us to do it, we'll probably all die. But it'd be more fun to try it that way, I guess. Half of us might turn into super freaking fungal zombies or something crazy like that. But that would be kind of cool to figure out how to utilize the Martian soil, the Martian style. But I would say the best bet might just be neutralize the soil, cook it. Like again, we can't always rely on technology. So worst case scenario, we just create like a Gehenna pit of trash or some sort of way of keeping it constantly, cooked so that we can just basically keep the soil cooked itself and then utilize that soil that's been basically sterilized and then re-fertilize it with our own bacteria, which might be beneficial because then if the soil eventually in this climate changes on Mars, hopefully that would provide enough of a buffer for our bacteria to fight off the other bacteria. But we haven't really tried that out. So we'd have to hope that our invasive species is a shock to their system and not the other way around. The best bet might be just to build up how many freaking Earth pathogens we put on Mars. Might be the best bet. The worst case scenario, since they're finding that there is liquid water on Mars, which people literally were reporting 200 years ago, these yahoos finally got on with the picture. Um, yeah, I would say that the likelihood of there being some form of life, preferably, or not preferably, but unpreferably, some sort of life that's very adapted to life forms like us in terms of consuming carbon-based life forms, I would say the odds of that's far more likely than us seeing an ET-like guy who wants to just phone home. So we should be very careful if we're sent down there from native fauna or any sort of type of quickly adaptive life form that utilizes carbon-based life to sustain itself. Now, the ability to digest carbon means that you might be carbon-based, but I don't necessarily believe that that's true. Again, we're basing this off of an ecology on Earth that is very streamlined, and we're not exposed to foreign environments like that. It seems to me that the opposite might be that we were actually protected by our isolation and not the other way around. So my fear is that we're going to go out in space and just get our absolutely curve stomped by everything that we touch, even down to the freaking sun. We go outside and just rise on sight. I feel like the universe is literally going to be on sight with us the minute we step off Earth, and it's not going to be a matter of just let's send our best scientists. Like, you guys can do that for the first couple expeditions. We'll listen about the failures. We'll immortalize you guys, whatever freaking holidays you guys want. But you send me down there, I want a good couple hundred people who can actually handle themselves in the desert and in other environments like the tundra and other cold weather environments, where basically survival is based off of rationing and scant resources and the need to be innovative in how you survive damn near nothing. We might have to literally have a decade where we survive off of potatoes. Now, another thing too is we're going to need animals. We're going to need livestock, which people are going to complain about. But to be honest, if we're sending a whole bunch of Christians under this scenario, well, the idea would be that we send livestock with us, and they would be utilized the same way. Now, how would we arrange society? It'd probably just be a representative republic with democratic processes of election in between, and a federalized system that centralizes, you know, uh, use of force and political expression of legislation. Um, so we have animals, we have livestock, we have different people, different professions. We get our experts because they always want to have a place in society. Um, how would religion work on Mars? Well, we left Earth. Does does that mean that God can't like pluck us from Mars and take us back to Earth? No, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's not possible. But then again, what if we're literally just sitting there on Mars and we just one day are watching as the Earth just disappears? Like, what happens if we just get left behind? That would be hilarious. Like the cosmic horror of realizing an entire planet just disappeared. That God is real, but he just also just kind of left you because you got forgotten because he just left the planet. That wasn't on the agenda. He came for the Earth. Like that would be so much of a mind frag. Like, are we just do we not just go to hell or heaven? Are we just left here? Like, do we just get to live forever? Like, what? Do we just get to colonize space? Like, dude, that would be the oh. Oh, I should get back into writing the space series because honestly, I wish I could share that with you guys more. But all right, so anyways, so Mars, we got food. We're dealing with our little base crop compartment things that we did. We got our people and stuff. Well, I think that public service and public worship is huge. I don't necessarily like the idea of having, everybody niled up behind their need to listen to a pastor. But I do believe that The ability for people to gather for public assemblies and public events should be encouraged. And it should be a foundational part of how we use our work week. So it wouldn't be so you have the potential to go and be individualistic, work on your own, do your own thing, and do there. But at least every 2 weeks, having a sort of communal event or some sort of way of commodifying people or bringing people together would be big. Obviously, my way as a religious person would be to bring back feast days and start celebrating the idea that, oh God, if you bless us and basically bless this whole new planet that we're basically trying to establish in your name, help us, stay together as a society. So the idea would be that during the feast days, during certain days, we do different things. And again, considering that we're just basically thrown on Mars because nobody on Earth wants to deal with us anymore, and they're basically, we have the technology now where they basically plan on just jumping past Mars anyways and never dealing with us again, just leaving us there because they don't expect us to even be able to maintain technology. That would be so ironic if we just see, I read a lot of Robert Heinlein, and that's part of the plot of that is that they basically humanity forces a segment of humanity off planet because we're just like so done with them, and they come back and they're just like, yeah, so you guys done living on this planet? We got the technology to leave the solar system now. You guys didn't get anything done, did you? That'd be hilarious. This situation happens the same way, where they send a bunch of religious people off planet because they're like, finally, we got rid of religion, and then everything just goes to hell on Earth. And then on Mars, we just become a utopia. We develop faster than light travel in like 100 years, and then next thing you know, we just show up on Earth like, so you guys want this tech so you guys can just join the rest of the civilization? Because we got a bunch of aliens who are trying to hook us up with something, but they said they need a home planet, and we technically don't count since we colonized Mars. So since we have to call you guys in, can you guys not mess this up for us? And then they mess it up for us, and we end up with Mass Effect. like a like a horrid hybrid between Mass Effect and Star Trek. Oh, and then after the collapse of the galaxy, we end up with the beginning of Star Wars in a galaxy far, far away. And then history becomes fully circular because then something happens, and then footage of the intergalactic wars. Oh my gosh. So there's a guy named Wendigoon that I like watching. And he did the conspiracy icebergs, and one of the end of the conspiracy icebergs gets into this whole idea that everything's circular through quantum time, and that everything we're experiencing already happened, but just in different variations of time of the pattern or loop that just keeps on spiraling through and reinforcing itself, kind of like a reverberation. Oh man, that'd just be so hilarious. We just end up. Oh god, just the Earth disappears, and we're just like, well, what's next? Guess we just take over the rest of the universe. Oh man, that'd be hilarious. Also terrifying. Oh, what else could we do? Um, okay. Piss off the atheists. I think the greatest thing to do would be to find the area where there's supposedly the face on the moon, and then make it into an actual face with the little hand just doing the peace sign, like our own little Mount Rushmore. No, even better, white Jesus. That would probably cause the first interplanetary war happens because we triggered the entire Earth once we got on Mars by just shaping. I think the place was called Mount Mons or something like that, but the face on Mars to look like white Jesus. Oh, it was the greatest troll move ever. Like, you guys sent us to Mars. What else do you expect but us just to troll you all? I'd say let's build a third temple. While everybody's fighting over the fact that there's a third temple being just designed over there, we just walk up there and create another temple, and we're just like, yeah, so this is the temple. We'll build like a model of the ark over here. We'll build, representation of the cross over here. It's all just built up as the body to white Jesus on Mars, and it'll literally just be called White Jesus on Mars. It could be literally a, oh my gosh, and just give it 50 years. It could be a pit stop for people. Be hilarious. Oh my gosh, with a Noah's Ark display and everything. Like, dude. Oh, this would be so much fun just to mess with these people. Oh man, the scientists would be complaining the whole time. This wasn't how it happened. You're lying about the history of the Earth. And we'd be like, dude, we're on Mars. They sent us to Mars. The only reason why you're here is because they didn't trust us alone with their tech. Oh, that'd be hilarious though. Oh man. Give us a couple AI, we teach them the Bible so they can teach our kids the Bible in school. Oh man, that would be hilarious. Oh man, everybody gets a personal scribe bot. And so the scribe bot would basically be able to read your children the Bible and be like a nanny bot. It helps your family around the house. But it also be like, you can update it, upgrade it. It could be your personal security. Dude, that'd be dope. Dude, watch us create a way better society on Mars as Christians than freaking atheists. Probably wouldn't be a theocracy fully. It'd be more like a republic or theocratic republic. But still, I think the concept would be pretty dope to try out. I mean, again, the only problem is that we have to deal with the world's bullcrap. But if we came up with our own currency or our own, you know, infrastructure, yeah, we could do it. We just genuinely have to have a government. Of course, the government will ultimately be under the authority of God and under the theocratic republic, but again, that doesn't mean that you can't be atheist, it doesn't mean you can't believe in Buddha. It just means that we all believe in not murdering each other, and not raping and pillaging, and that even if you have an alternative God to the creator of the universe, you still don't want to destroy the universe through your association with your gods, which is kind of the ultimate goal of, religious pluralism, is that we're basically saying you can do what you want, it's just please don't destroy us in the process. So yeah, that's my pitch, Elon. Give us a nice colony on Mars. You, let's say you take half, I take half. Get you a whole bunch of Christians and other people will be willing to go and jump onto Mars and colonize for a bit. And if you build us a way back, come back with a story to tell. Might be our one way out of this mess without getting fed to the lions. Oh man, I want hot chocolate. I want chocolate milk. Oh, I can have chocolate milk. Having milk, hot chocolate, hot milk chocolate. Milk chocolate, that's hot. That's the thing. Um, is there milk chocolate on Mars? It depends on if we have chocolate cows on Mars. Might be a reason to have genetic modifications on Mars, but that would just be repeating the same process on Earth on Mars. That'd be kind of defeating purpose. Heck, Native Americans, you guys are allowed to go with us on Mars as well. So basically, Elon, appeal to us, appeal to the Native Americans, then send us all up there with livestock and stuff and give us just like a good 100 years. When you come in, we'll basically have like, a bunch of infrastructure and stuff you could do deals with, and you could do trade with our planet. And then we'll basically be able to give you a nice little easy trade out instead of dealing with the Earth and the continents and their constant bickering. So then that allows you to take all of your people and all the scientists and all the super smart people, and you guys can launch yourselves off even further into the Oort cloud and start colonizing that area. Once you guys start setting up mining colonies up in that area, we can then launch a little bit further out, figure out what's going on with the Jovians. See, mutualistic progress over here. See, we Christians aren't always dumb. Pragmatic. Plenty of Christians be left on the earth to help out those people with their self-destruction. The rest of us can go and figure out what's out there in God's created universe. Probably won't get that far, to be completely honest, but hey, we'll be there so you guys can convert last second. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm done. brain's done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out. Deuces. I make money. I got bills. The bills. I got pay every day. I got bills. So I need you all to obey and click and subscribe and do that thing I bought. Anyways. I swear I don't drink anymore. I just get tired. There's a nice hum to my computer where it's just going. It just puts you in a nice little vibe mood. But I'm gonna go vibe out later.